Hello and welcome to this instructional video on how to sit. So in this video, I'll be guiding you through a couple different ways in which you can find the most comfortable seat for your meditation and pranayama practice. Over the next 4 months, we encourage you to cultivate a daily pranayama and meditation practice. Even if it's 5 minutes a day, what you will notice is by the end of 4 months, 5 minutes won't be enough and you will crave more. And your pranayama and meditation practice, it will grow organically and naturally. So there is no need to put pressure on yourself that you must sit for 30 to 40 minutes every single day. Just allow this time to build over time. So I'll be showing you through a few different postures. You'll need 2 blocks, a bolster or a blanket or a chair to practice these. The first one will be Vir Asana, also known as Hero's Pose, and we will use 2 blocks for this. You'll slide the blocks so it rests directly underneath your sitting bones, and your toes will go back so that they are flushed behind you and that your knees are parallel. So your hip joint and your knee joint are parallel with each other. Your knees are not turning inward or outward or finding any twisting. And the same is for your feet. They're not sort of pointing out or sickled inward. They are directly pointing behind the body. So we sit high on these blocks, and you might like to sit higher than this. So it's totally up to you. You might like another block. But we have the spine quite high to avoid any compression in the hip joint. I will turn now so that you can see me side on. So when we're nice and high, the hips are higher than the knees, you can see the line that runs down my hip and down to my knee. We have this beautiful open line here for the nerves to run through and continue sending messages and blood to the feet. Now, when the knees start to rise up and be in the same line, so if I were to remove a block, what I have done now is I have slightly closed the line, the nerves that runs from the hip down and around to the feet. And if I were to come all the way down, it will close the joint off completely. So this is why our feet go to sleep in meditation, is because we have closed the nerve here. So in order for us to sit comfortably, the hips will need to be raised to an appropriate height so that we are not closing off the nerves to send blood and messages down to the feet. So the whole idea of finding a comfortable seat is so that we can sit for a long time without worrying about pins and needles and pain in the back and anything that distracts your mind from the task at hand. So when the hips are raised, we have this beautiful open hip joint. The knees are directly down, and there's no pressure on the knees because my weight is going directly down my hips, down onto these blocks. The next thing I would like to mention is the spine. So if you bring your hands to your hips here, you'll find a neutral spine. So we don't have an anterior tilt accentuated, so the Instagram bum, and we don't have a posterior tilt, which is a curving. This will likely feel unnatural, this rounding and a pushing of the pubic bone forward. So when we're sitting, ideally we're following the natural curves of the spine. And we will talk about this a fair bit more in anatomy. But the spine has these 3 curves, and it starts here in the lumbar, The spine, it goes inward, and then at the thoracic, it comes out like a wave, and then at the cervical spine, it sort of heads back in. So we're following these natural curves of the spine, and by doing this, we'll find a very, very subtle anterior rotation. So I'm not accentuating it, I'm just very slightly tipping forward, and I'm not trying to straighten my spine. I'm just finding a natural seat here where the spine is long and comfortable, the shoulders are relaxed and soft, and the chin slightly draws down and back, but not so much so that we're pulling the chin back and we're creating strain through the neck. So it's down and slightly back. You may notice in everyday life, when you're driving, your head kind of comes forward, when you're typing, when you're looking down, texting. So we just draw the chin slightly down and back to find a lengthening of the spine. So this is option 1, Vir Asana. This is probably the most comfortable seat. If this is not available for you, the next option would be to sit on top of a chair. So most studio nowadays will have chairs. You'll have one at your home. So this is a great option, and you may need blocks for your feet. So I have shorter legs. So you can see here that when I come to sit, I'm not rolling back because this creates the posterior tilt in the pelvis. So I come to move away from the back of the chair to find the natural curve of my spine. And I will step up on blocks here so that I can find a little bit more of a comfortable angle for me. When my feet are down on the ground, it kind of pulls my pelvis a little bit too far forward in the anterior tilt. So stepping it up on the blocks here, I have much more control at how much I wish to tilt my pelvis. So the spine is long and the hands can just rest on your knees here. So this is option 2, where you'll come to sit in a chair. Option 3 is in Sukhasana. So this is probably the most commonly taught in your yoga classes, where you'll sit on top of a bolster and find cross-legged. So for Sukhasana, I will bring my first leg in, and that's my left leg, and turn my heel so it faces upward. And then the second one, I'll do the same. So the tops of the feet are flat on the floor, the hips are broad, and the knees are wide. So I'm sitting on a bolster. However, if I were in a studio, I would pick a blanket instead, and perhaps you might see the reason why. So what is happening in my body here? I have an accentuated anterior tilt because this is a little bit too high for me. So you can see I have the Instagram butt, the Instagram booty sticking out. So ideally, if I were to sit on something a little less higher, I have greater control where my knee can place on the earth here and my hips just be slightly raised so it's comfortable and long for my spine. Now you'll see a lot of yogis bringing their hands out like this, drawing the chin in, and there's nothing wrong with this. But can you sit like this for a long time? Can you enter a state of trance for a long time without your shoulders and your neck creating tension? So I think this is fine for your pranayama practice, but when it comes to entering deeper states of meditation, it is nice to have your hands just resting down comfortably on your legs. Palms can face down or up, just so that the shoulders are relaxed and there's no tension in the neck. Now, of course, if none of these options work for you, you can always lay down on your back and choose to practice laying down. The only thing is you may fall asleep and it's really, really easy for the mind to become distracted and kind of think of other things. Whereas when you are seated, you are focusing on the anatomical alignment of your body, and you have to just have a little bit more effort when you are seated. So if possible, come to find a seat. Now you can do a mixture of these. You might start in Vir Asana and then move to a chair and then come to Sukhasana, and that's absolutely fine. You can chop and change, but remember, we want this to be as seamless as possible so that you can enter those higher states of meditation. So I hope this has been helpful, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask me. Thank you.